After a huge win to the Nashville Predators, the New York Islanders have a golden opportunity to save their season. But if this is going to work, they have to capitalize on this opportunity right away because this may be the last chance the Islanders get. We're going to be talking about this on this episode of Islanders Digest and also really breaking down the game and talking about some players who I thought really had strong games against the Nashville Predators. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe to the channel, be one of our first 100 subscribers as we try to reach that goal. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content, this is the channel for you. And let me tell you, it is a good day. It is a really good day when the Islanders win a day game, first of all. They almost never win day games. But on top of that, Ilya Sorokin scored his first goal in the NHL. It's so rare to see a goalie goal. Now, that is perhaps one of the strangest goalie goals I've ever seen. You had to watch the clip like 5 times just to see that he was the last player to touch the puck. Still, I'm so happy for Ilya Sorokin. Seeing all the players on the team laugh about it, it was a good feeling win. And honestly, Ilya Sorokin scoring that goal kind of saved that win from a bit of a sour taste as the Islanders let up a couple late goals to really make that game a lot closer than it should have been. That being said, although it wasn't their best game, I do think they played pretty well overall. But although it was not their best game, the important thing is the Islanders got the 2 points. Because recently, the Islanders have been playing a lot of strong games and coming back with nothing to show for it. Now let's really talk about this opportunity the Islanders have in front of them, because they really need to seize this time if they are going to make the playoffs. The Islanders now have 61 points in 59 games, so they're now, again, above that NHL 500 mark. They've still lost more games than they've won when you look at overtime stats, but at the end of the day, the New York Islanders are really close to a playoff spot. The Islanders have 61 points. To get in the playoffs right now, you need to have 66. That's what Detroit has. That's also what Columbus has. And now that they've played their game in hand, at least with those teams, they still have a game in hand against the Boston Bruins. But now that they've won this game, 5 points out seems a lot more manageable than 7 points. And even though it is just a 2-point difference, it really does make a difference. The Islanders are right in the conversation, and even though they do have some teams to climb, we've seen this before with the Islanders. We've seen a couple seasons in the past where the Islanders have been trailing, coming right up to the deadline, and then in the last few weeks of the season, they just find another gear. And that's really the opportunity the Islanders have. That's really the advantage the Islanders have above all these other teams in this playoff push. Sure, the Rangers are a pretty strong team. Boston is really struggling, but they also have a strong roster. Ottawa Senators at points, they're really sliding right now, but they've had a good run at points. Obviously, Detroit and Columbus are the teams to beat. They're currently in the spots. But the one thing the Islanders have that none of these teams have is experience in this position. The New York Rangers are not used to chasing a playoff spot with a couple weeks left to go. The Boston Bruins are normally used to being in the playoffs halfway through the season. They just know they're in the playoffs. They're not used to what it takes to really have every game going down the stretch feel like a must-win game. And really, even though a team like Nashville is not a great team, this today really felt like a must-win game. And the one advantage the New York Islanders have above all these teams is they've been there before. Last year, they were in a grueling playoff race, and after seeming like they were out and that their season was over, they came back in and won 8 of their last 9 games to force themselves into that playoff spot and be the 3rd team to come out of the Metro Division. The year before, they did the same thing where they forced themselves to be the last wild card spot. Now, if the Islanders are going to do any damage in the playoffs, they're definitely going to have to fix a lot of concerns with the roster, really play some better hockey. But the first step is always, if you're going to want to win a championship, the first step is to get in. And the Islanders do have an opportunity to get in, but they have to buckle down moving forward. We're going to talk about some of their games coming ahead, and these are definitely games the Islanders have to lock in if they want a chance at making the playoffs. First game we have coming up next is the New York Rangers. Now, in the previous game, the Islanders got embarrassed against the Rangers. They're really going to have a strong effort and really show the Rangers that what happened last game is not what's supposed to happen. Show them that they can win this game. And also, if you look back at the standings, the New York Islanders are currently chasing the Rangers. They're 1 point behind. A win in this game could really change the tide and really make it an easier race for the Islanders to compete in. as you pass these teams, even though you have a lot of teams in the playoff race, as you pass these teams, you no longer have to focus on whether or not they're winning games to catch up. You can just focus on winning the games you need to win. That's the situation you want to be in, and passing the Rangers would be a huge opportunity towards the Islanders making the playoffs. If they're going to be able to do this, that game is going to be huge against the New York Rangers. After that, the game right after that, that hangover game after the Ranger game, playing the Jets, is also going to be a must-win game. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be using the term must win a lot, but it's true. Really, every game the Islanders play until they're eliminated from the playoffs is really going to feel like a must win game or a really need to win game. And if you don't win, you have to bounce back strong because all these points matter. And as important as these 2 points are against the New York Rangers, especially because you don't want the Rangers to get 2 more points, that would really hurt the Islanders' playoff chances. But in addition to not wanting them to get more points, you also need points against these teams like the Winnipeg Jets, who play in the other division. Even though if the Winnipeg Jets get points, it doesn't really matter for your season. You need those points as the Islanders. The Jets are going to be a really tough team to play. But on the other hand, I also see this as an opportunity. If the Islanders can come in before the trade deadline and beat the Rangers, and then the next day beat one of the best teams in the NHL in the Winnipeg Jets, that's an opportunity to, first of all, just show management that this team does have something left in the tank. After all season management saying they believe in this team, it's a huge opportunity for the team to show management that they are right and there is something in this locker room. And despite all the injuries the team has faced this season, they can still push to have a chance to be in the playoffs. Because as we know, all you need to do in the NHL is get in, and then anything can happen. I know in the past 2 seasons, the Islanders have kind of limped into the playoffs, and then it has been a rough showing. But you never know what happens, especially if you play a different team. The past 2 years, the Islanders have been playing Carolina. This year, if the Islanders make the playoffs, it's not going to be Carolina. It's looking like it's either going to be Washington Capitals or the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is definitely a matchup I would like to see. I would love to see the New York Islanders play John Tavares in the playoffs. Islanders have been pretty good against the Maple Leafs in the past, but getting a bit ahead of ourselves talking about that. The important thing right now is to win 2 games. You got to win these 2 games if you even want to talk about the playoffs. And if we're going to want to win these games, especially against the Rangers and the Jets, the Islanders are going to have to play better. I know this game was not a bad game. The Islanders outshot the Predators. They're definitely doing a good job putting shots on net. That being said, this was not the best showing. I think especially defensively, the Islanders were pretty sloppy in this game, especially at points. I do want to see them tighten that up. Penalty, the one thing I will say was definitely a positive. This is the first time in a long time that the Islanders power play has looked remotely relevant. The Islanders power play was actually moving the puck really well today. I was actually excited to see the power play again after they actually scored a power play goal for the first time in what feels like forever. It's only their 16th power play goal of the season, but it's good to see them connecting. And what I really liked about that power play goal is how Adam Boqvist was included in the play. Adam Boqvist had another great game for the New York Islanders. He's also really starting to look like a steal, a player who could potentially really flourish under the Islanders system after really struggling on some of his previous teams. As we see, Brock Nelson almost got a hat trick today. He did get robbed at the end there, but Brock Nelson with 2 games, 2 big points. In the worst case scenario, if the Islanders can't quite make the playoffs, you can still have some souls, if the Islanders do decide to sell, that players like Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri are having good games, because that's only going to increase their trade value. I don't want to talk too much about selling here, because this video is more focused on if the Islanders can make the playoffs and what they need to do. And right now, what they need to do is play the way they did today offensively. You know, I love the way Adam Boqvist was moving. I definitely want to see him continue to play in the lineup. He adds speed that this team desperately needs. We'll see if he stays in the lineup. Patrick Waugh did only play him 14 minutes today, and as I've said in the past, a good sign of what defenseman Patrick Waugh is going to play in the next game is how many minutes each player is getting. Adam Boqvist definitely took less minutes today than he has in some previous games, but we will see about that. But the important thing is, if the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, if they're going to seize on this opportunity, if they're going to beat the Rangers and then the Jets before the trade deadline, they're going to have to play better defensively. The offense they put up was great, and it is good to get a win, but we do have to keep in mind, the Nashville Predators are not a great team. They are really struggling this season. Other teams are going to put up more offense. The Islanders have to play better defensively if they're going to take advantage of this opportunity. And I definitely think they can do that. Some of the goals they let up today were a little fluky. Not really blaming anyone, especially when they got the win, but they're going to have to tighten up, especially late in these games. The Islanders have not blown a lead recently, but they have been starting to show some signs of that old leaky team that really struggled earlier in the season with the lead. And if the Islanders are going to seize on this opportunity and really try to make the playoffs, take advantage of this opportunity in front of them, they are going to have to tighten that up. With that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the Islanders can make the playoffs, especially if they win their next 2 games? Do you think they can make it? Do you think they can pull it off for the 3rd year in a row? Pull another Magic playoff appearance out of their hat? Or do you think that there's just not enough left in the tank? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And as always, let's go Islanders.